Hello and welcome to another podcast from Odell Technology. Today we're joined by Dr. Kavita Subramaniam, Translational Science Research Manager at the University of Oxford.
Hello, Steven. Hello, everyone. My name is Kavita Subramaniam, and I am a Translational Research Manager at the University of Oxford. So, a little bit of my background. I'm from Malaysia, and I did all of my studies in Malaysia, including my PhD, which was on endometrial cancer. And then when I moved to the UK for my postdoc, I continued on my first postdoc also in the gynecological environment in uterine fibroid before my last position at King's College, where I did gene therapy on a rare skin disease. And so about 3.5 years ago, an opportunity within the Translational Research Office came up. And at that time, just bearing in mind, I did my PhD about 10 years ago, I did not know that there was such thing as translational research, although I was already doing translational research in principle. And so to see a role formalized in a way where it was created to help researchers to bring different parts of their research to a clinical impact was really refreshing. And within the university, the office sits within the medical sciences division. And as a translational research manager, I'm positioned to speak with various different innovation stakeholders, including researchers as the primary clients, so to speak, but also our most connected members of the university. But at the same time, we also interact with clinicians, with NHS, the trust, industrial partners, as well as experts around the industry, such as yourself, and various different partners within the university, within the innovation ecosystem itself.
So, Kavita, tell me, how do you personally define successful translation, and what does that look like in reality?
So coming from a research background, we're always geared towards successful outcome means successful in a positive way. But as I've been in this role for a few years now, in addition to seeing successful outcome being the next step of the research is being brought forward closer to clinical impact, I also see the early de-risking step as a yes/no being a successful step, which means that we are positioned at the earlier stages of translation where all the de-risking steps are ongoing before the research moves on to a larger translational funding application, for example, or bringing into clinic. But this is the critical sweet spot step where things could also not work. And that is also very important to highlight, because something that you've done and it doesn't work, which means that someone else doesn't need to start from scratch and reinvent the wheel and doing the same things as you've done. And they could go as an alternative route to see what you've done and what else they can do. So it's a two-pronged mindset that I think we should have.
Okay, so Oxford's quite a unique environment in the world. It's quite a unique environment anywhere. I think that how do you actually make those different parts work together in practice?
Yeah, so we have a roadmap now, or a map, so to speak, of where everyone sits to give clarity on who does what. And I have to say, as you've rightfully pointed out, Stephen, that the Oxford innovation ecosystem is very uniquely positioned. And we have us, the Translational Research Office, to do all things translation, but we also have our innovation partners within the universities perimeters, such as Novo Nordisk and AstraZeneca and so on. But at the same time, we have we're able to provide a wraparound support to researchers, even at pre-application or post-application, because there is our dedicated technology transfer office, who's Oxford University's innovation. We have a dedicated business partnerships office who liaises all things industrial related. We also have a dedicated venture capitalist firm, OSC, Oxford Sciences Enterprises. And at the same time, the region itself is surrounded by all different trusts that has the clinical pull to help researchers to get their research into real world clinical impact. And in terms of how we work together, well, communication is absolute key. We have to know very simple things such as, when does your unit's newsletter goes out, so that when we have something new, we can quickly blast out the information to the other units. And also having word of mouth, but also knowing that when a researcher approaches to us with a problem, we know who to connect them with, and vice versa with the other units as well. I think this is something that we are doing a lot now, improving our
Very
communication.
successfully too, I must say. Kavita, you've also brought along 3 case studies today. Would you mind starting to walk us through those, please?
Yeah, so I wanted to show that, showing how a project has moved from concept to pilot to a clinical or an industry engagement. So one of
Thank you.
the, I think, quite a popular example is how the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine came about from the university as the result of a collaboration with AstraZeneca. So the concept is that this vaccine platform was developed at Oxford's Jenner Institute. So there was a pre-pandemic research on viral vectors. And they had pilot and early validation done, and there was a very rapid early stage trials in Oxford during COVID-19. And because of the unique positioning, the clinical and industrial scale with the partnerships with AstraZeneca, this enabled a very quick global phase 3 trials as well as manufacturing and rollout. So the impact, as we know from news, is the first widely approved COVID-19 vaccine globally delivered at scale. But what it goes on to show is this is actually an academic platform built over years, but they were able to rapidly mobilize and clinically test it and scale it through industry. And this is exactly what translational research is meant to do. And the Oxford Biomedical Research Center directly supported development and the translation into clinical use within that NHS setting. So that's one example. The second case study that I wanted to highlight is about Dark Blue Therapeutics, which was acquired by Amgen, bench. This shows the translation between bench to big pharma. And this was a fundamental cancer biology discovery at Oxford, where preclinical and early translational work was done across multiple departments. So the industry and spin-out formation happened, and it was acquired by Amgen to accelerate development. And the impact of it was that there was a potential new targeted treatments for leukemia and other cancers. And this shows the full arc from discovery science through to a global pharma acquisition that can take therapy into late stage development and, of course, to patients. So the acquisition itself reflects translation of discoveries into new medicine. And we sit at that earlier stages, right after discovery happens, and bringing in all the different partners into making that translation happen, and off it goes. Then the third one is probably you would have seen this in the news as well. It's about Organox, which is a normothermic organ preservation system, which was acquired by Terumo Corp for global scale. Again, this is another bench to big pharma. And the concept of it is it originated from research background within the university on how to better preserve donor organs. So the key idea is that instead of keeping livers, for example, on ice, maintain them in a near physiological functioning state outside of the body. How to do that? How to do the normothermic perfusion? So the early validation happened through a prototype perfusion device. It was developed and tested in preclinical and early clinical studies. An early trial demonstrated that organs could indeed be preserved longer, and they were assessed for viability before transplant. So there was the formation of Organox as a spin-out happened to commercialize this technology. The clinical trials and regulatory approvals enables, and that these are the enablers that happen to make sure real-world use is highlighted in liver transplantation. This, in the translation of real-world impact, it increased the utilization of donor livers, including those previously considered marginal. So it improved transplant logistics. Organs can be preserved longer and transported even further. And this was a direct patient benefit through increased access to transplantation. So all these three examples that I've shown is actually emphasizing bridging research and real-world application and all the different players that are involved in this.
Indeed, it's quite a complicated field you're in.
We are a small team of 8, and we work across all 16 departments of the Medical Sciences Division, as well as cross-divisionally with the Engineering Sciences Division as well. And I am one of 2 Translational Research Managers, and I'm supported by Translational Research Coordinators, admins, as well as a newly created role in Partnerships Manager in Global Health. So, people who are watching this, you might know that Oxford is down the hill and up the hill, and we are up the hill within the innovation cluster of the university, where we sit very close to Business Partnerships Office, Bioescalator, and all the hospitals. Then here, this is what I was going to explain a little bit in depth about what the office does. So part of my role is to provide our service provision as part of my role as Translation Research Manager within the Translation Research Office. Firstly, we help researchers develop translational strategies. And what this means is that when a researcher comes with us with an idea and to say that this is the stage of project we are in or we are at, we then think and strategize with them of what would they like to do next? Would they like to talk to pharma? Would they like to apply for a next bigger translational research funding? Would this work of what they have right now, could we arrange it in a work package manner or a milestone manner to see where their next critical milestone or go, no-go steps should be? And then in addition to that, as an office, we also provide proof of concept funding. There are 2 flagship fundings that we provide for internal Oxford researchers. And one of it is quite general, which is the Medical and Life Sciences Translational Fund. Another one is targeted to internal translational funding call, which is in diagnostics in tropical and infectious diseases. So following on from this, and usually these internal funding goals are between 6 to 12 months, because that is just the high risk, high reward sort of duration that you need to make sure that the hypothesis works or the milestone can be achieved. Following on from this, a lot of researchers would like to apply for external follow-on funding, at which point we do provide our advice through what could be an appropriate external funding scheme. We help them at the bid writing stage to make sure that all the sections of the translational application is filled out in a manner of how translational research application should be filled, because translational research application forms is different than a research grant application stage. And apart from that, we would also in addition to the translation funding itself, if there are any other external investment that can be secured so that the project can propel towards through the translation pipeline.
Okay.
We provide project management support for those at post-award. And what I'd like to highlight here, and I can show the slide later on as well, is that we connect the researchers to the right resources and external expertise. And this is through the jewel of the TRO's crown, which is the Experts in Residence Network, part of what you are part of as well, Steven. And I can't emphasize how monumental this has been to researchers, because we get a lot of researchers knowing what to do on the science side, but when it comes to the amount of external players that's needed, for example, regulatory approval, what sort of dossiers needed, who's going to pay for it once it's approved, the NHS pull on it. So these are the training and education piece that we are also trying to educate researchers on. And that then leads on to creating partnerships between Oxford academic and the wider innovation ecosystem.
Okay, that's excellent.
And I also wanted to take this opportunity to emphasize that the Oxford research also goes beyond just the Oxford UK geographical location. So we work very closely with Oxford's overseas research units based in Southeast Asia. And this has been an ongoing effort because they are based within Nuffield Department of Medicine within Oxford. But these are long-established, welcome-funded overseas research units, and these are capacity building programs. And out of three, we work very closely with two, and we've just started conversation with a third location as well. But from the two, Mahidol Oxford Tropical Network Research Unit, MORU, as well as Oxford University Clinical Research Unit, OCRU, what we do is that we make sure that we provide tailored and context-specific support. We have a dedicated staff or a unit that are based within these units that we have monthly meetings with. We coordinate support for upcoming funding calls so that the access of TRO resources are available to everyone who are Oxford's associated.
Fantastic. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. Um, and also, I think I just wanted to highlight this. This goes back to what I was saying earlier on all the different translational activities. And this is also something that I learned when I started, that securing funding is only one part of translational research. And researchers and the team needs to think about various different activities within the journey to provide solution that will then bring to practical benefits. For example, you need to think of the end users and who's going to benefit from it. We need to do a market analysis and assess the appetite for the innovation or the technology that the research team have. What's the competitive landscape looking like? How the intellectual property will look like for this novel innovation? What's the regulatory landscape is going to be? And this is something that should be thought about much earlier in the journey compared to at the very end of the journey, as well as who the industry that you would like to bring into the research would be interested in this. And following on towards clinical trials, this clinical and market adoption is a very important piece of activity, as well as healthcare economics and reimbursement. And all these activities brings together what a translational journey would look like. The internal funding that I mentioned earlier. So what I just wanted to highlight is that we're not just ensuring that projects are fundable, but we're also providing training and development to improve the translation strategy. So enabling the milestone mindset, thinking about key areas of translational program such as market size and opportunity, as I said earlier, unique selling points, the landscape, IP strategy, as well as identifying and aligning funding opportunity. And this goes to show earlier when I mentioned about the proof of concept funding, that about 18 million that was invested into Oxford's early translational research portfolio. We've funded 256 projects, 114 commercial partnerships initiated, 120 patents application filed or awarded, which then brought to 21 plus spin-out companies. And I really have to acknowledge the innovation ecosystem here that works together, such as the Business Partnerships Office, Oxford University Innovation, Oxford Sciences Enterprise. This is a strong Oxford ecosystem to help researchers in various intersection points of their research. So we're not just funding research, we are unlocking pathways to real world use. And we're actually seeing a real shift where researchers are thinking earlier about patients and systems and implementation and not just publications, because that's what academia traditionally is. We have to publish, definitely, but there's also wider impact to the work that's being done.
So, Kavita, what would be the best way you would describe internally about how you equip researchers to commercialize, to engage with to engage with the regulatory agencies and commercial bodies?
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. So there are two ways that we do, actually more than two ways that we do, but the two that I would like to highlight is first that the office have been interacting with the Royal Society's Entrepreneurs in Residence scheme, which is a highly renowned and valuable resource developed by the Royal Society. And it aims to increase the knowledge and awareness in universities within the UK of cutting-edge science, research, and innovation. So the scheme itself provides an opportunity for industrial experts to help advance innovation within specific academic institution. We've been very lucky in Oxford's Medical Sciences Division because to date, since the office's inception in 2019, we've had 3 different Royal Society entrepreneurs in residence. And the first one with Dr. Nessa Carey, she has left a lasting legacy, which I will touch upon after, followed by Mr. Stephen Bass, who was brought into the university during the pandemic time to learn from the COVID response and how we can apply these learnings for any future endeavors. And then the third entrepreneur in residence who we brought in because we started to notice, even within our internal funding application, a huge rise in interest within AI and digital health. And this is the trend. This is what we are seeing. But we noticed, or we realized that we didn't have enough expertise within the university to address the questions that researchers had. And so we needed someone within the industry who has seen the inception to impact journey within AI and digital health. And therefore, we spoke to Dr. Oliver Harrison, who's the founder CEO of Core Health, and we brought him in for 2 years. And one of Oliver's role is to identify the gaps, the common themes of gaps that researchers are facing within the university. And with Oliver, we hosted an AI in digital health masterclass. And this is to equip researchers with the tools to turn AI-specific innovations into real-world healthcare solutions. And it's actually the aim was very simple, to provide an overview of the key components in healthcare innovation so that the research that's being developed can go through concept through to clinical trials and market launch. And this was designed to anyone in healthcare ecosystem, academic students, clinicians, or industrial players. And following on from this is what I'd like to call the jewel of the TRO's crown. This is one of the most valuable resources that we can offer, which is the Experts in Residence Network. So we have about 35 plus expertise, and this spans from drug discovery and development, digital health technologies, entrepreneurship, innovation, and medical devices and diagnostics. And this is also where, Stephen, you have interacted with many of our researchers within the university. And we are trying to build more opportunities for people to upskill, whether it's in AI or regulation or commercialization. This is a dynamic, responsive resource that grows according to the needs and demands of the researchers within the university. It's a beneficial two-way system because Oxford researchers can contact us to see if anyone is available, experts are available to offer them advice. Where they can meet and discuss their translational strategy or any bottlenecks or questions in their translational journey. But at the same time, experts can also have a feel for the research that's going on within the university and where they can offer their services best. And it's also a networking opportunity for experts within the network itself to see who others are within the industry that they can work well with. Because this is a dynamic resource. We're now working on expanding 2 of the nodes. This is responding to the needs of the university researchers. One of it is digital health technologies itself, but also we're introducing a new global health node because of the amount of work that's being done with our colleagues in our overseas research unit. This has been a monumental, impactful resource.
That was absolutely excellent. Thank you for that. That's great, Kavita. So what are the largest barriers that you encounter in the innovation system and outside of the innovation system currently?
Yeah, there's motivation to get research into clinic, and I can see that happening from an academic perspective, and having done research myself throughout my PhD and postdoc. But I think it's also very critical and important to understand, would clinic need this research? And the critical information is also making researchers aware that pushing research out is not the only way to make impact, but understanding the pull from the current gap in the clinic or issues that needs solving is a huge factor, because that would then mean that the research is responding directly to what the healthcare gap is and the healthcare need is. They are having that understanding and then shaping up proposals or shaping up bids to solve that problem can go a long way and have a huge impact. And following on from that, which I can also say, having been in academia, siloness is also a factor. And this can mean that two or more research groups are working on solving the same problems, but they have no idea that they're doing that. And I do understand why this is due to the way academia is set up. And that there might also be worry that ideas might be scooped. But I think you have to get to the point of impact quicker. You can get to the point of impact quicker by collaborating and knowing that at the end of the day, that the research is solving a problem and that patients are facing, real world patients are facing. And what you are doing, you are proposing multiple avenues to solve the same problem.
Okay, so do you see a disconnect between what innovators think is valuable and what healthcare systems actually adopt?
I think what healthcare system can adopt and would adopt is two different things. What they can adopt needs to also be relevant to what is the big problem within the healthcare at the moment. And research stems from a place of curiosity, but it also needs to become realistic to the point of, can this be adopted, as you've just said? Can this be applicable within the setting? Can this be adopted easily, or does it need to be a disruptive change that needs to happen in order for this research to be adopted quickly?
So what has surprised, Kavita, what has surprised you the most about your working at the Innovation Hub, and what has surprised you most about innovation overall?
Yeah, I think after being on this side of managing translational research, just the science of it, I'm astounded every day by the amount of thinking and research that's being done for all sorts of conditions and diseases. This really brings me out of my one disease research scope of PhD and postdoc work to a wider, bigger picture. And what surprised me the most is actually, and this is something I'm learning every day as well, that translation doesn't happen at the end of the research. It starts from day one. And it also surprised me is it's not just the science. The science is one component, and that component is quite obvious. It's a discovery, it's a target, a biomarker, mechanism, a promising therapy. But what it encompasses is everything that has to line up after that for an idea to help real patient. So it can be a biologically elegant result, and it can fail because the assay is not robust, the patient population is too heterogeneous, trial endpoint could be wrong, manufacturing cannot scale, or the clinical workflow will not support it. So, the slide that I showed earlier about all the different pieces of activities that needs to come together to make sure impact is made is really critical, and something that we are trying to provide that piece of education every day.
I know it's a very impressive organization, and Oxford is a very unique place. So what are the biggest opportunities for other people to engage with you? How would you recommend they do that?
Yeah, I think for researchers, we try to talk more with different people. We have lunch and learn sessions. Early engagement is key, even before funding calls. You don't need a fully formed idea. Some of the best projects starts as conversations. It's okay to come with problems to solve. We can map that out to the people and the strategies and work towards it. And even if you're not applying for funding, you can start thinking about who is this for and
Yes,
how it could be used in the real world. And then also thinking about cross-disciplinary collaboration. Some of the most impactful journeys, it happens when clinicians, data scientists, researchers, various different people come together early, and this is where the siloness needs to break. And for example, for industry and external partners, we're always looking to work with partners who can help scale and implement solution. And this is a mutual value. About the overseas research unit as well, something that I would like to add is that the office's mission is to have a broad impact for patient benefit and global health. But talking about pathway to impact is not necessarily prioritizing or focusing on projects with just commercial or monetary benefit. It also involves social impact, global health impact, policy changes, and things that goes beyond just monetary return.
perfect. So it's more the sociology, the biopsychosocial aspects of the
Exactly.
work that's being done in Oxford. And I imagine a lot of it, a lot of work at Oxford is policy, is directed at policy, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. I think that's extremely important for people who are involved in policy research.
I think what I wanted to kind of bring from a personal point of view as well is that um, this is the work that I'm doing because I'm in this amazing innovation hub and the location and everyone that I work with. It is so motivating to speak to various different people at various different points. But the sweetness of the outcome is that when you see that project goes on to make an impact and you think, yes, I've worked with this PI
That's
earlier
right.
in the journey, and look at how far it's become. We worked with a seed funding or a pilot concept. We helped them to talk with various different researchers. We helped them to get this external bid, and then off they went and look at how far they've become. And these impact can be as short as less than a year or long as it takes. But just within my nearly over 3 years within the office, I can already start seeing impact with PIs who I first spoke when I first started this position and looking at where they are right now. This is a very rewarding position to be in.
I think you're very fortunate. I think the university is fortunate to have you. Kavita, it's been a great pleasure to speak to you today. Thank you very much for your time, and I
Thank
wish you
you
all the
so
very
much.
best for the future.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Thank you for this opportunity.